Good morning, Delaware. It's a beautiful October morning. I don't know that the rest of the weekend's going to be as nice, but hey, enjoy it today because it is beautiful out there. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning, George.
That's Nicole Fowles over on the microphone on my left. Your right as you stare into your stereo dial. That's Gage Tellis behind the board. Hey, Gage.
That was
impressive. This morning?
That was impressive.
Hey, I'm getting my radio voice going here. It's like only 6 years on the show. It's about time I did that.
Only 3 years, huh?
So anyway, and our guest today is Robin Yocum. We are delighted to welcome. Hey, Robin, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're delighted to have you. Robin is one of the 3 mystery authors who are going to be joining us at the Ill-Mannered Brewery on Monday, October 25th for a fundraiser for the Friends of the Library. Karen Cowan was here this morning and told me there's only about 10 tickets left, so you better jump in and buy your tickets now.
That's exciting.
So it's going to be a lot of fun. So we will be talking about Robin's latest novel, The Sacrifice of Lester Yates, in the second half of the show. But Nicole, what are you reading, listening to, binging on right now?
I just finished a really excellent book that is, I actually don't like the title of this book. I don't feel like it describes it well. It's called Remote Control, and it's by Nnedi Okorafor, and it was brilliantly narrated. I'll have to catch her name. Cynthia, I think, is she's a Broadway star, is the narrator. And it is about a young girl named Fatima who is in Ghana, and she is kind of almost chosen by the stars or the universe or something along those lines. She is playing outside near her favorite tree one day, and a little bean falls out of the tree, a little bean pod, and it's kind of glowing like a green color, and she thought, oh, that's fun. And then she buries it because she wants to come back for it later. She's playing outside again later, and it seems as though the roots of the tree are almost pushing the bean back up to her, presenting it to her, this time in a beautiful little wooden box. And so this bean kind of keeps following her, and she makes it almost a little pet of hers. Her mother's telling the whole story of, oh, my daughter Fatima has, found this beautiful bean, and it's almost become a pet to her, and she just makes everything, an animated object whenever it's hers. Well, soon some very important people are coming to Fatima's home to purchase this bean for a lot of money, and it doesn't make any sense to her parents, and of course they say, yes, take it. But it seems as though that bean does not belong to those people because not good things start happening to those people. And Fatima then starts to have some things happening to her, too. She's getting very hot. Her skin is kind of glowing green. She's not quite sure what's happening.
Kryptonite poisoning?
And on the day that she's going to, mosque with her, or temple with her brother, she is going to cross the street. It's a very busy street, and she is hit by a car or a bus, and it makes her expel so much anger and so much energy that when she comes to, she realizes that about a mile radius around where her body was hit has kind of been incinerated, and nothing else is left. So there's a lot of kind of questionable things that are surrounding her. She realizes that she kind of has this power, that she kind of, can emit this green glow that just kind of dissolves anything that's near her. She learns how to control it. She's only, mind you, 7 years old, 6 or 7 years old whenever this happens. But she's lost her entire family because of when she got hit by the bus. So she kind of just travels across Ghana and becomes known as the adopted daughter of death. Because, not good things really follow her.
I used to think about that as my sister when we were kids.
Don't tell her that.
So it's a feel-good story.
It's a really, really feel-good story. It's a little bit of science fiction. It's a little bit of mystery. You never really know why she received the gift that she did.
It's kind of not a mixed gift.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah, so.
Right. Is it a gift? Is it a curse? She becomes very strong, very independent. She uses the mystery that follows her to her advantage. She goes, from town to town, and whenever she travels to those towns, she has a new name, Sankofa, which is a bird. And so Sankofa is coming. And so as she gets to the town, she says, I require sleep, I require food, and I require new clothing. Can you provide those for me? And everyone says, of course. It's only about a 7 or 8 hour listen. It's brilliantly narrated. Like I said, if you listen to the audiobook, it'll read even faster if you read it. But I would recommend listening to it just because of a lot of the language that's used in the book taking place in Ghana. It is a lot of fun. I would recommend it maybe for like young middle school. It's really not an adult book. It does have some darker themes to it, but a middle schooler would be able to grasp it. But I enjoyed it as an adult as well.
Sounds good.
It's called Remote Control.
Okay, but you're not crazy about the title.
I'm not crazy about the title because I think the remote control portion comes in a bit later whenever she realizes like how she can control it. But I just don't. I think her name Sankofa would have made more sense as a book title.
Okay, great.
But I love it.
Robin, what have you been listening to or reading recently?
Well, let's see. Now, I just started one called Sea of Darkness by Brian Hicks. It's about the raising of the Confederate submarine Hunley. And I read a lot of fiction or nonfiction,
right?
Even I just finished News of the World, which had been out a while, but I finally got to that. And I tried, and I like to do a lot of audiobooks. Spend a lot of time in the car.
Sure.
And I tried to get through Run Rabbit by John Updike. And I could only get through about half of it. I guess as I've gotten older, I give up on books that don't resonate with me.
Good for you.
And I got about halfway through it, and I thought, there are a few writers out there who have done really well, Updike being one of them, that when I read, I just don't get it.
Right.
I just don't get it. And
he's the same way for me. I've never been able to read Updike.
And quite honestly, Faulkner's another one. I just kind of scratch my head. But I am a big fan. I read a lot of James Lee Burke, who I really like, and a lot of Steinbeck. I've read. Steinbeck is probably the only one I read repeatedly.
Yeah. Nice.
I've read The Grapes of Wrath a couple of times. Of Mice and Men.
Of Mice and Men.
Yeah.
Cannery Row. I love. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, great. So my book this week is our guest next week's show, Andrew Welsh-Huggins' book, An Empty Grave. Andrew Welsh-Huggins is the AP reporter in Columbus covering, as he says in his Amazon bio, criminal justice, the Ohio State House, and long-lived zoo animals.
No.
And so my first question for him next week is, how can you tell them apart?
No.
So anyway, I previously reviewed his first Andy Hayes novel, Fourth Down and Out, on Off the Shelf a couple of years ago. This is his latest novel. I think it's the 7th in the series. Andy Hayes is a former quarterback for OSU and the Cleveland Browns who got caught up in a point-shaving scandal while he was an OSU player, and he became a Buckeye Nation pariah.
This is fiction?
This is all fiction.
This is not a real person.
No, this is not a real person. No. If a Brian Schleister kind of creeps across the back of your memory, some of this resonates from that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Art Schleister, excuse me, not Brian. Yeah, Art Schleister.
Oh, Art, you're right.
Yeah. So anyway, after he does his time, he returns to Columbus to become a private investigator. In this outing, he's and I wonder, and I'm going to ask him this: why would you come back to Columbus?
After
if you're hated that much,
file.
if he went and lived in Philadelphia, nobody would give a darn about him because it's not Buckeye Nation and it's not the Cleveland Browns. Moved to Salt Lake City. Why come back? Anyway, that's for me to ask him next week. Anyway, in this outing, Andy's trying to solve a 48-plus-year-old mystery to see why an accused burglar who shot a cop was able to just walk out of custody and disappear. Now, the cop's son is upset because his dad committed suicide eventually over this, and now the son is obsessed with finding answers. So he hires Andy to track down the mystery. Now, everybody believes that this burglar died in a fire 10 years ago, but all of a sudden, some of the clues don't seem to fit. So Andy, he doesn't really want to take the case, but then the coincidences and the bodies start piling up, so he decides he's going to follow up on it. So An Empty Grave it's just classic hard-boiled noir. The private investigator is tough, but he's flawed. The urban setting contrasts glitz with grit. There's a wealthy family with deeply buried secrets. There's a mysterious but beautiful woman. I mean, it's all the stuff that makes noir work. The institutions are dirty. Politicians are well, they're politicians. And all of this happens right here in Columbus in central Ohio with lots of recognizable locales and settings. So this is a real treat for mystery readers. It's the kind of book that just is perfect for an autumn afternoon when you just want to kick back and enjoy a mystery. And like I did last Sunday, I sat down, started reading this, and just 4 hours later, the book was over, and I was ready for dinner. So it was really good. So I recommend it. It's called, again, An Empty Grave by Andrew Welsh-Huggins. It's published out of Ohio University Press's Swallow Press imprint, and it's available at the library. So we're going to take a break and come back and talk to Robin Yocum, who, by the way, is not related to Lee Yoakam, who is in the show after us. They spell their last names differently anyway. So anyway, we'll be right back, so please stay tuned.
And you're listening to Off the Shelf on My 96.7.
Thank you very much, Gage. Welcome back to Off the Shelf. We're here with Robin Yocum. Robin Yocum is the Edgar-nominated author known for his fiction set in the Ohio River Valley. He's the author of 5 previous works of fiction, and plus a nonfiction, the essay, right? That's the nonfiction?
Essay was fiction.
Oh, okay.
A Welcome Murder and a Dead Before Deadline were nonfiction.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. So Favorite Sons, one of your previous novels, was the 2011 Book of the Year for Mystery and Suspense by USA Book News. And in fact, Favorite Sons is actually the genesis of The Sacrifice of Lester Yates, your current book.
Right.
So I have to ask you, I was thinking about this morning as I was getting ready for the show. What's the significance of the word sacrifice in the title? That usually has religious connotations.
You got it.
Every now and then there's a word that just trips right over my eye tooth and I can't see what I'm saying. Anyway, and I was thinking about that. So talk a little bit about that.
But that was just, the whole premise of the book is a wrongful conviction.
Right.
And a guy on death row, And Sacrifice, they were willing to, there are certain people and entities in that book that were willing to sacrifice Lester for personal gain.
Right.
They knew in their heart of hearts that he hadn't done it.
He is the sacrifice.
Right. So they're going to sacrifice him.
Yeah, that's the reason I thought of this was because when I did the tease for the show with Mark, I started to say the sacrifice of Isaac Yates, and I was thinking the sacrifice of Abraham and Isaac,
sure.
And it just jumped into my head that there's sort of that to it. So you mentioned that he's that Lester is probably innocent, and people know it. He's been wrongfully convicted. That's been sort of a theme in your career as a journalist.
Quite a bit. I mean, I covered several stories. I actually wrote a series for the Dispatch back in the day on wrongful convictions, dating back to when we hung a guy in Youngstown, Ohio, that we later found out hadn't committed that crime. And there were a couple cases that have really piqued my interest over the years, and I don't think it happens a lot.
Right.
And matter of fact, when I was working on the one story, I went to the Ohio Public Defender and said, realizing, of course, that every guy in prison is not guilty.
Of course.
Yeah. Do you have anyone who's more not guilty than
that's great.
than someone else? Yeah. And they actually turned me on to a couple, and just find it fascinating that kind of thing can happen.
And then there's one case where somebody was wrongfully exonerated, sort of, that you've been pretty vocal about, and that's the Billy Milligan case.
Billy Milligan, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you seen the Monsters Within?
I have not seen it. I know it's out there. I knew Billy we had interactions when I was with the paper, and he was found not guilty by reason of insanity for having multiple personalities.
Right.
And it was a total scam. I believe it was an absolute total scam. But he was able to pull it off, and he found some psychiatrists that would agree with him. But he continued to misbehave his entire life, and I just think he gamed the system.
The interesting thing about this Netflix series is that there is no narrator. It is all the people who are involved in the case are the people who speak, and it's a real mix of people who think he was just a total con artist and people who think he absolutely was totally sincere in his multiple personalities.
Yeah.
And I kind of got the feeling after watching it that there was a little of both. That there was, this kid went through terrible trauma when he was a kid, but he learned how to use that to get what he wanted.
Right.
That's a smart kid.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, there's no question he was smart. Although, some of the things that they thought, one of his personalities supposedly was able to speak Arabic. Well, it turns out that his cellmate was Arabic, and Billy pretended that he wanted to learn Arabic from this guy, and he had him write things out.
Oh.
in Arabic, and it was, and he claimed one of his other personalities was able to speak Serbo-Croatian, but when they brought in a psychiatrist who could speak Serbo-Croatian, and he started to ask him a question, he would switch personalities. So I mean, it's stuff like that. Yeah,
No, he's not here right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He was convicted of rape prior to when he got it off.
Right.
But apparently he only had one personality then. He didn't use that then. Yeah. So
Right.
I think it was total con.
And you said, I think in your blog post that you talked to a jailer who saw him actually reading the book Sybil in his cell.
Well, there were police officers told me, because I was covering the crime beat for the Dispatch in those days.
Okay.
And said, oh yeah, he was down. Everyone knew what he was doing. It just
It's amazing, though. It's an amazing story. Even the fact that he's been dead 7 years and we're still talking about it.
right, exactly,
Yeah, so
exactly.
Anyway, enough about Billy Milligan. I want to talk more about this book because I really enjoyed The Sacrifice of Lester Yates. I talked about it last week on the show and just thoroughly enjoyed Appalachian, Ohio. I lived in Lancaster. We both lived in Lancaster for a while. And we've seen how that's been hollowed out so much. But you mentioned in one of the interviews, I think the one you did with the Bowling Green, about you assign real people as the characters in your book. Yeah, you have them in your head. You don't
play the roles
by
of my
name.
head. Exactly.
Do they ever catch wise? Does anybody ever come up to you and say,
no.
I know that character
That seems
you
very
put in that
familiar.
book?
No, it's funny. For my main characters, I always assign it to a real person because then I know the inflection, their mannerisms. That helps me kind of flesh out the story. I've had a guy I went to school with, high school and elementary school, and he was sort of this weaselly, you didn't really trust him, and he's played that role for me in about 3 books. He has no idea in the world that I'm using him, but there was only one character. There was couple characters with a guy that was a really good friend of mine, and he knows that I use him as a character. In fact, he played Deacon in Favorite Sons.
Okay.
And he was always sort of my moral conscience growing up. Every time I was getting ready to do something stupid, he'd say, "Come here." Yeah. But there was one character in Favorite Sons that I thought, man, I'm going to get busted. And he was one of the main characters. And I thought, I'm so going to get busted out on this one. But I doubt he's ever read the book. But no one has ever said, "Hey, was that so and so?"
Okay.
Even
less was that me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that first step gives you the leg up is that somebody actually has to read it. And then has to know the person to be like, I don't know, this seems similar.
Yeah, Karen and I, before the show today, were talking about Hutch, that we want to see Hutch again. Your lead character. He's the Attorney General of Ohio. In this book, he was working in the county prosecutor's office. The county prosecutor's office in Summit County in the first book. Yeah, and so, but he's kind of being groomed to be the Attorney General of the United States under this governor that he's working with.
Correct.
He doesn't work for because the Attorney General doesn't work for the governor in this state. But anyway, we want to know what happens to him again because he's an interesting character. He's funny. He's very human. I mean, you've done a great job. And many of the characters in the book, I mean, are really well rounded. Everybody from his secretary to
Love Margaret.
His muscle guy. They're all really well rounded characters. So yeah, Margaret's a wonderful character. And so I just want to know more about like Hutch and what happens with Lucky. That's the dog they rescue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which was the characters of Libitor and Lucky the dog. That wasn't planned. That was just something that sort of happened because I always know how my books end.
Okay.
When I start to write something, I don't put words on page 1 till I know what's going to be on the last page.
Okay.
But it's sometimes the characters surprise you on the path to get there, and they become very interesting, very likable characters. If I bring Hutch back, I've got to find a case now that he's the Attorney General. It's got to be big enough that the Attorney General actually wants to get involved with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or he has to not be Attorney General anymore and become a prosecutor again or something. I haven't.
Right. There could be something like, I don't know, an energy company scandal. That just nothing that would really ever happen in a state like this.
Not in Ohio, for God's sake.
So
I was actually thinking of human trafficking. Seriously, that would
that's
be something that,
and that's huge in the state, and I think a lot of people don't even realize it. So I've been to a couple of seminars and webinars on that, and it's
was
really
the recent big sting with all the Johns, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So you also mentioned that interview with Bowling Green State University that you try not to write whodunits. And yet, there was a good mystery in that book. I mean, it surprised me exactly how everything unfolded. So there is a certain element of mystery to that. What's the difference between the way you write and what you would call a whodunit?
Well, I think with the sort of the standard line I always use is I don't write whodunits. I write, we know who done it. Now, what are we going to do about it?
Okay, sort of like Columbo as opposed to Perry Mason.
Exactly.
Okay,
trying to, because when you get to the end of this. Okay, Lester didn't do it, but we still don't know who the we know that the Phoenix. We know some things of how some of the women died,
right?
But like the main character or the one gal, it's sort of funny because I've been working on other books. I forget the names of my old characters. But we don't know. So there's a lot of gray area, which is life. Which is life. You don't always everything wrap up in a neat little bundle. But and even in my books that are, which I think A Brilliant Death is a really good relationship book, I think, but there's still a mystery. Right. There's still a mystery of how these things came about.
Well, I love gray areas.
Yeah,
I think you have to incorporate them. Everything can't be neat and nice and packaged.
And I have to tell you, our deputy director is from Chesapeake, Ohio. And when I told her there was a whole chapter in this book set in Chesapeake, Ohio, she just spun out of control. She thought that was the greatest thing. Tell me that title again. I've got to get my hands on it. So I had to tell her, it's one chapter and it's an interview basically.
Right.
But I think when she reads how you captured driving into Chesapeake, she's going to love it. So anyway,
I hope, because I made it all up. So we're gonna but I grew up near Steubenville. And I love the High Valley. It's just that the whole valley. There were 60,000 steel mill jobs when I was a kid growing up between Steubenville and Wheeling. Right. We're in West Virginia. And now there's zero. Yeah. I mean, it's just.
I know. I grew up in Buffalo between Bethlehem and Republic Steel.
Okay, there it is.
Yep,
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's really been a tough time down the valley.
And the only thing that's replaced the work has been the drugs, and it's been just a
which
tragedy.
is sad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for this book. Thank you for agreeing to help with the Friends of the Library, for doing the commercial, for everything. And we look forward to seeing future novels, both set.
Well, I look forward to seeing you on the 25th.
You're going to see me on the 25th. I'll be the one drinking beer and asking questions. Yeah. So
in that order.
we know, though, when I have a single author, I can actually interview them. When we have two authors, they talk to each other, and I don't have to do anything. We have three authors. All I got to do is get out of the way. Yep. So that's what I'm looking forward to, just hearing you guys talk.
Well, authors who like to get by, they do like to get behind a keyboard, but probably like to talk even more. So
of course.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
We have a couple of minutes left because we got some big things coming up at the library. Tomorrow, Saturday, October 9th, our 6th annual Geek Fest.
Yes.
So
I think that's about right.
It's going to be virtual. We've got all sorts of great stuff happening. Just come to the library's YouTube site.
Yes.
Which give the specific
YouTube.com/thedcdl.
Great.
THEDCDL. It's all day long. It kicks off at 9 a.m. with a little welcome panel, and then there are things like story times in the morning. There's a book talk. There's a trivia. There's a spelling bee challenge, and it's hard. It's going to be, can you spell people's names from Star Trek and other things like that. So it's a geeky spelling bee.
If it's harder than Kirk, I'm in trouble.
Right. There's going to be a little bit of interactivity, so quiplash and different sorts of Jackbox games. And then at the end of the day, there's going to be our full Librarians Lore Dungeons and Dragons storytelling kind of event. That has been one of the biggest events of the entire thing. Also, if you're doing any of the in-person things, Find Loki ends tomorrow, Saturday, October 9th. So grab your Find Loki sheet or download it from DelawareLibrary.org/GGF for Great Geek Fest, and then turn it in by tomorrow and you can win a prize.
And don't forget, you left out the cosplay contest.
Well, the cosplay contest, you've already entered. The entries have closed, but watching it is now the fun part. Yes.
Right. They're
and you
going
might
to be
know
doing
a
the judging panel. Yes, I do know one of the judges because I just dropped off her judging sheets to Megan.
Oh, nice.
And that's my wife, Joyce, who does costume design and everything. So thank you, Joyce, for helping out with that. What is there? Let's see.
The 12th, on the
Thank
12th,
you.
we have Excel Basics at 3 p.m. You do need to register for that. They're limited seats. On the 13th, we have Books and Brews at 6 p.m., and that is another opportunity to drink and talk about books.
And they're
of
talking about
course.
The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell at that Books and Brews.
That one's at the Daily Growler in Powell.
And the Friends might discontinue sponsoring the show if I don't mention the bargain book sale that's coming up a week from today,
Yes.
October 15th. That will be in the garage at the Delaware Main Library. Friday night, 5 to 8 will be the book sale. And then on Saturday, the book sale in the garage plus a CD and DVD sale in the community room at the Delaware Library. Busy week at the library.
We did it.
And don't forget, Monday the library is closed.
Yes,
Not for Indigenous Peoples Day or for Columbus Day, but because we have an in-service for our staff that day.
That's right.
So we will see you on Tuesday again. But in the meantime, thank you again, Robin Yocum, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Nicole, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Gage, great work behind the board. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And we will see you in the stacks.